Welcome to the Serious TV Drama Podcast. I'm Scott, and joining me this week, well, he's neither stooge nor spooge, it's Dan. Hey, Dan.
Hello, Scott.
Next, she's maybe a little less friendly than old Windy Wendy. It's Jamie. Hey, Jamie, how you doing?
Hey, Scott. Glad to be here with you guys and Spooge.
I said he wasn't a spooge. Although, and finally, he's less of a coward than Howard, but more rambling than Hamlin. It's Brian. Hey, Brian.
I thought you were going to call me Bronzer Brian, but if that works.
Considering you look like you have the pallor of a dead fish in our screen right now, bronzer would be the last thing. Unless you're talking about the fish, which sounds like bronzer, but anyway, I don't want to get hung up on that. Anyway, we are back to discuss this week's installment of Better Call Saul. It's the 4th episode of the final season, Hit and Run, which was written by Ann Cherkis and directed by some directing newbie. I forget what her name is exactly. Oh, yeah, a little Miss Ray Seahorn. But, but more so than even Granite State was to Ozymandias, this episode was a definite breather following up the insane tension levels of last week's Rock and a Hard Place. I'd even go as far as to say that both Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad have a tendency to have a couple episodes that while they push the plot forward a little bit here and there, and they're very solid and even great episodes, they tend to be a little less intense or heavy, and I think that's been necessary for both series. Certainly was with Breaking Bad, and now that there's more elements of life and death in a show like Better Call Saul, it really makes sense here. So we're going to get to this. I'm going to probably steer away from the usual tick-by-tick recapping, just open it up to you guys, just talk about different characters and set pieces and so on. Before I do that, I just want to say one thing. I knew it. It's not in the same league as Dan calling out that Chuck was going to die in a fire back early in season 1. Son of a bitch. But I think around the same time, I've been calling for the return of a certain little meth-addicted gal who's just trying to get one root beer at a time. And when I saw that season trailer and saw that shot of pink heels, I figured finally, after 7 years of me, it's kind of like me whining about yellow boots on The Flash. I've been whining about Wendy coming back to to the Vince-verse here. She wasn't a cleaned-up suburban mom, which is where I really think they should have went. But she definitely was a lot less haggard than we had seen her on Breaking Bad when she was delivering the burgers with special sauce with Jesse. So I just wanted to say at the outset, I was just thrilled that she finally popped up here. I was far more excited about seeing her show up than Spooge, although Spooge was still kind of funny.
Yeah, she was looking pretty good. She wasn't quite so, this was
Ratchety?
her earlier days. Yes, maybe earlier days. Life hadn't gotten as hard as it possibly could just yet.
Yeah, they did do a close-up of her teeth, so we haven't seen if her teeth had gotten all rotty and mushy as of yet, but
And we know she likes a bit of gray. She likes a silver fox.
oh, that is true.
I thought it was kind of cool that, like in reality, that motel looks like complete shit. So, I wonder if, since they had to make it look like an older version of itself, if, the motel just looks like that now, if they, actually, I'm assuming they just, painted it. So I wonder if this, scuzzy-looking dive motel, just looks better now and the show just left it that way or something, or if it was just a temporary thing.
I don't know. My guess would be sometimes when, especially TV shows, I guess movies too, now I think about it, when they use an actual location, but they have to do something to dress it up and it's going to be more of a permanent thing, as opposed to like say when they filmed Around the Corner for me, some movie that had Elizabeth Moss and some other people in it, but they had to make everything look like it was the 70s or something. So they changed the window dressing and signs and most of that stuff got changed back. But there's a movie theater near me that for whatever reason, I don't know why, maybe it's just because it's off the beaten path, it got used multiple times for The Americans and some other TV show as well. And the money that they spent to fix it up basically got reinvested into the theater. So the theater got fixed up because for the TV show, and it remained that way. It's oh, this is a much nicer theater now. Thank you, Americans. And then I would say, thank you, Americans. Anyway, so what a weird way to start the show. Speaking of weird ways to start a show, let's talk about that cold open. Oh my God, segue of segues. That's where we eventually realize hey, this couple that we're watching cycling around the neighborhood, it looks like they turn out to be connected to a team of, I'm going to call them, these are Mike's guys who have been surveilling Gus Fring's house, and presumably, is it safe to assume that they probably have remained there ever since? That even through once we get into the Breaking Bad period, that's probably still the case. Maybe that's how, like that time when Walt was parked outside and was getting out, or I don't even think he got out of the car yet or something. I can't remember. You fresh my memories. I probably got that wrong. But he gets that call like from Mike, who doesn't seem to be anywhere around. It's like, well, that's because they're under surveillance down the block. Do you think that's where that came from? Anybody?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, when you're going to go through the effort of having a tunnel dug, and have that many board games set to go, I mean, people were there for, they were staying there for long lengths of time. So I'm assuming that it's a live-in situation, and just based off the couple when they walked in, to having their conversation and grabbing their stuff out of the fridge around all of these guys, like they're a part of the furniture at this point. So, yeah, I'd say they're still there.
I think maybe, but I don't know. I'm gonna go the opposite way. I think it's just more of like something that they put in place when like Gus is freaked out by something and wouldn't necessarily be there all the time. Constantly having a staff like in a two houses next to each other going on all the time. I mean, it's certainly possible, but I just kind of got it. It's just this is more of
for like emergency meetings only.
Yeah, well, he's like freaked out by like Lalo right now, so he has like more security going on.
Right, but but it seems to me you didn't just quickly dig a fucking tunnel between two houses. That has to have been put in place all along. So I think it's always been there. So that's also a way for both he and anyone he meets with to come and go without being spotted. Mostly him leaving without anyone realizing he's leaving. I mean,
I'm sure it's vulnerable. I thought we were talking about the people and stuff like like all the extra security that's there right now. I thought we were talking about not the infrastructure.
But what else would it be otherwise? It wouldn't just be an empty house. It wouldn't be. I'm just in a case. I'm gonna have people walk through your house occasionally. Neighbors down the block. I'm gonna say they're. Well, I mean, obviously we don't know for a fact. I mean, unless someone listens to maybe the breaking. I'm sorry. Better Call Saul Insider. They might talk about it there. I don't know, but just to me, I just think it makes more sense just based on some of the things that we'd seen happen, and the thing about how Mike magically knows Walt is there so instantaneously, as the way I remember it happening, makes me think, well, that's because the house has remained under surveillance, because once we get past the Lalo situation. It's not like Gus remains best buddies with all the people in the cartel from that point on, considering what ends up happening down the road. So but anyway, again, it's a matter of opinion. So it could go either way. What I loved about it was the absurdity of it. That's what I loved it. Just the way, just the couple walking through and acting like I just remember going, okay, it's so beautifully absurd. I gotta appreciate it. It's on the edge of over the top. It just goes, I'm gonna buy it because it's so much fun, but it's so just when they're riding the bikes and they're talking about how they're gonna complain to the homeowners association about a house that's painted a bright shade of red down the block, and then you walk in and there's guys with AK-47s walking around and all these things, and I was like, all right, okay, I see what you're doing here.
Well, and a few things on that. Just the idea of Gus maybe being like the head of the like neighborhood like POA is hilarious to me. It's like we're gonna have to deal with those those sycamore trees or whatever it was, and Gus is the guy to take care of it. And also just their like whole conversation about what shade of red would actually be appropriate. It's not just that it's red, it's the particular shade of red. Like if it had been like an Adobe red, then they wouldn't have batted an eye. Yeah, it's fun. It's just a funny scene.
Did they agree it was tomato red or fire engine red? I can't even remember now.
I think they agreed with fire engine, but the reality is that is Saul Goodman red. That's the same shade of red we're getting on repeat all season. And the writers really like to play with that, like that hot and cold colors with our characters. So it was kind of a great nod towards that red again.
Oh, very nice. I'm a big fan of the color red, so I don't care what shade it is. I'll take it. So we can also go beyond just the opening if you want to just take it further than that. Just the interactions we have with Gus and with Mike later on. And the one thing I thought was, in my mind, was notable about that, I feel like it's an early indication, and I believe it's happened already, but it's that Mike is fallible because Mike is wrong. And it's just one of those interesting things. Like, oh yeah, I like that because I just, again, it all goes to Mike's final moments. Like, well, he was kind of wrong about Walt and how he handled that situation, and all the way here, he's wrong about thinking that Lalo actually must be dead. Like, no, Gus is wrong about a lot of other stuff as the show goes on, but this is one he's actually right about. I thought that was kind of interesting.
You called that, and I think we've said we saw Mike hit the apex of his powers, and now he's becoming more and more human and fallible, and he's not quite as vigilant as we've seen him be, or he should be. And Gus is right, and he's wrong.
Yeah. So we can we'll check back in with Mike later because when we get to what might be like the scene of the episode, but I kind of want to get to the Jimmy and Kim scheme here, with Jimmy wearing enough bronzer to pass for the 45th president of the United States. So I really wanted to talk all about that, and also I know over the years, especially Dan, I think Howard's become very much a favorite character of ours. So I feel this is a very interesting episode for Howard, especially with that therapy session and what we learned there and the reasons why they did that. I'd rather let you guys talk about that. So go for it. I mean, especially the Howard stuff. I thought that was really fascinating.
Who would like to go first? Brian, Jamie?
You go ahead.
Me? Okay.
Yeah. Yes, you.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, you rugged gentleman.
You're the number one Howard fan. You're the one that's wearing an "I Love Howard" shirt. So
the number one.
I'm wearing a shirt.
On you.
I'm not wearing a shirt. I'm not wearing a shirt at all. And if you're listening to this, I'm sorry if you just got turned on. Yeah, I was glad to see Jim fake Howard suit again. I had a feeling maybe an episode or two ago, as their scheme developed, that we might get a reappearance of it. So it's pretty cool that he still had it and can use it for this situation, because it's been a very long time since we saw that. I mean, what I can't remember what year the show aired. Was it 2014, 15?
15.
I don't know, something.
15. Yeah.
So it's been about 7 years since we saw it, so it's pretty cool to do that. And yeah, it was just funny. Well, as to what they're setting up for Howard here, I'm not really sure, but if I certainly think it's possible that they're setting up not good things in the future for Howard by showing that his home life isn't the greatest. So if his professional life is also getting insulted, there's always a chance that he'll get the nacho treatment. This season, possibly.
I'm thinking that one of the things what they're doing with the therapy session, as we're getting more into what's really going on with him, it's the fact that as the season begins, or as the last one ended, if we were already feeling a bit uneasy at best about this whole scheme to torpedo Howard that Kim is concocting, this makes it worse, and I think that's why it's there.
Oh, absolutely.
It's to make,
Yeah.
And then you have certain revelations that happen during that conversation between Kim and Cliff Main, which make it even worse than that. So I see you nodding, Brian. So why don't you pick it up?
No, I was just going to say, it's like they've sort of flipped the script that sort of the evil corporate lawyers, they've introduced humanity into them in a way that now, Kim and Jimmy aren't punching up, they're punching down. Or you have the fear that that's what it's going to end up being. They're going to be punching down, and it's going to be particularly nasty. And I thought the most interesting thing Howard said, and it's a really weird way to describe like a relationship with a significant other, is when he said we're deadlocked, when he was talking about his wife. Like, and they give you just a little brush with the stroke of what the picture is, but enough information that like he's really working on an impasse at home that he can't get past. And so it's really beautiful humanizing of him. And then what you alluded to earlier, we get some humanization of Clifford Maine, and that, almost like this plan is working too good because these guys are too nice, and things are going on that are making them susceptible to it, that almost makes it pathetic.
Right. I mean, it's interesting how, even though we don't spend that much time with Howard over the course of the past 5 seasons, how they've still managed to take a character who could have been seen as a very one or two-dimensional at best character, and as they've done, just like they did in the Breaking Bad universe, like with Hank, for example, they start to fill in, color in more shadings, and start to make him a more empathetic character. I think they really did that with Howard once there was more of the revelations that Chuck was behind Jimmy not being able to move up at the law firm or become a real member of that law firm the way he would have liked. And then the way Howard was dealing with Chuck's death. Now, if I recall, isn't Jimmy kind of, lets him stew in his own juices over that, as opposed to like cutting him a break or something, which is kind of one of the colder things I think we've seen Jimmy/Saul do on the series, if my memory is correct. But anyway, I think we stockpile those memories of Howard, and we're realizing, okay, he's really not. We learned that he's really not a bad guy after all. And then we start to have feel for the dude, and then what? So then when you get fast forward to him making that offer to Jimmy and Jimmy doing the bowling ball thing, we're kind of like, huh. While we can kind of understand what Jimmy's doing, we also can see Howard's perspective. They're like, there's a certain level of psychosis to this. His reaction is not rational, shall we say, in that regard. But this scheme, I think now there are some people who I think are going a little too far with how they're painting Kim and what she's doing this season. Obviously, this is about, while you had the whole Nacho breaking good, she's kind of breaking bad. She absolutely is. When someone online, and I don't think he listens, so I'll get away with it here. When he posts, I'm like, who's breaking more bad right now, Kim Wexler or Wendy Bird? And I was like, whoa. Okay, put the brakes on, son. The worst thing Kim's doing right now is like, she might ruin a lawyer's reputation. It would be kind of a scumbag thing to do, but you can't compare that to, Miss Murderer over there. That's, you just can't. But that
brother? What brother? Yeah.
Oh, brother.
Yeah.
But the thing, but then when we get that revelation about during the Cliff Maine conversation about his son, and you have to wonder, do we want to give her the benefit of the doubt that she wasn't aware of that, but still is going to press on with this? Or did she know about that, and she knew that would make this whole situation with Howard 10 times worse to Cliff Maine because she knew about the situation with his son? What do you guys think?
I would bet she didn't know.
Yeah, same here.
I mean, I would think if something like that happened, like in that circle of powerful people, that's probably kept like close to the vest so as to avoid that, reflecting on the law firm or whatever, until it's handled. So I would give her the benefit of the doubt that she probably didn't know and just happened to find a lever to pull with him that was particularly, I mean, it was lucky, and part of any good scheme is you have to have some luck, and she was lucky.
And I think one of the tougher things about just like the undertone that's in that conversation, besides what you were already pointing out, Scott, is that the way that he talks about it to her, it seems like it's something he doesn't share with a lot of people, only people he considers worthy of knowing that, people that he trusts. And so when he's like talking about that with her, and meanwhile she's part of this plot at the very same time, it's like a few more paper cuts, just a few more paper cuts to remind you, like, this really sucks what they're doing.
I want to agree with you guys. But I don't think I do. What you're saying is, Dan, go on before I say anything.
Pretty much what she's trying to accomplish here is just to, like, keep him talking long enough to, like, see this, like, car hooker drop off thing.
Keep him there.
So she just needs to have the substance of the conversation be, like, authentic enough to, like, let him know that, like, that it's just like that they're not setting him up for something. So the fact that she's surprised by, like, him taking her up on the offer makes me indicate that they probably didn't, like, research the stuff particularly well, because that was an unintended consequence of just, like, the mission being, like, just having him in that location at that time. So that indicates to me that she maybe didn't know that and wasn't being manipulative, because getting Cliff Main on board for this charity, whatever the stuff, isn't what she was expecting to happen.
Yeah, okay, I could see that, except I guess for me, I'm not making a direct connection to the specific purpose of the thing that she's proposing to what his son went through. He kind of my recollection is when he brings it up with in a way where he brings up acting as though she had heard about it already. He doesn't bring it up that's as far as I'm remembering the conversation, as like this big, he's about to give her this big revelation. And she doesn't react with a great deal of surprise, and she certainly doesn't bring it up later when she's talking to Jimmy. She just talks about he actually went for the idea, whatever. She doesn't say a word boo about the fact that his son has this whole drug issue and what he went through. So that, therefore, what's going on with Howard would hit him especially hard. These are the reasons why I'm kind of inclined to think she did know about it. I don't know that it was kept hush hush and secret, because he's an operate above board kind of guy, and to keep that quiet would probably involve some more underhanded activities, whatever. So I love Kim, but I'm kind of going the other direction on this one. Plus, it's better if someone disagrees with you guys.
Well, at the end of the day, whether she just found out and let it continue, or she knew about it while she was planning it, the end result is the end result, and she did nothing to stop it. So.
Oh yeah, it doesn't change her mind about doing anything whatsoever at that point. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, while you've got the stuff going on with Howard in therapy, and then later the revelation about Cliff Main and the son, whatever, we get to have fun for a change, which we haven't had that much of in the last couple episodes. We love the episodes, just they haven't been especially funny. But like Dan was mentioning with him, and I'll tell you right now, Dan, when you brought up the suit from season way back when, I totally forgot about that. Once you said, it's like, oh my God, that's right, he had the Howard suit. I totally forgot about that. And now he combined it with the bronzer and the hair lightener and everything else. And oh, by the way, his hair did look pretty good, actually. Later, Saul Goodman should really take some tips from earlier. But that whole sequence of him driving around is just so much fun. And the ridiculousness of the parking spot being taken away. And the fact that he would overreact.
Who moves the cone?
Who moves the cone? I was like, You don't hang out in big cities very often, do you, Jimmy? Because, you know, I always joked if I was a driver, like I'd have like 3 or 4 cones in my trunk, and I would put them out all the time.
Put them everywhere.
But I've seen people move cones. I've seen people put garbage cans on top of fire hydrants to hide them so they could just park by and whatever. That never works, by the way. But I very much enjoyed
the part where we have this music, that's playing in the background. I don't have high on the whammy bar, like leaning into almost like shady 70s porn music going on this whole time when he's like doing his little devious plot. And then he gets in that car and he turns it on, and you've got like Benny Green playing, and the face he makes when the music comes on, where he's just like disgusted and turns it off. And then immediately our background music cues back in again. It was clever.
Yeah, he was definitely wanting to hear some Deep Purple at that point. I would think that's more Jimmy's thing. And of course, that it's during this whole sequence is when we bring Wendy back into it. So yay, Wendy's back, and I really like that. Not so much her interactions with Jimmy per se, but later on when Kim picks her up, so you get to have some actual conversations and actually giving a level of not just, oh, she's, that she has some intelligence still, and she has a certain amount of pathos as well, which makes her that much more a tragic character when we think about how we're going to see her, at some point later on Breaking Bad, where she's a lot more skilly, or whatever the right word is. I can't. You know what I'm trying to say here? It's just like, oh, this is really kind of sad. At least that's the way I took it. And it's during that whole sequence where they think that they're being followed by undercover cops are buzzing around. That's to affect Wendy, when actually that's not who they're there for. And then you have Kim's radar going off. The Kim and Jimmy comparing notes later on in bed and everything, and it's interesting because it's really sweet, but it's also bothersome at the same time, because we know what we just saw, in the fact that, other than her reacting, like he actually went for the thing I was just using to stall him with. And I remember it kind of made me go, she's not mentioning the son. She's not mentioning that at all. It's like, ooh, she's, okay, maybe she really is Breaking Bad here.
Well, she knows, again, she knows Jimmy. She knows that he is always willing to make a deal or create a plan, do something a little shady. But the reasons that she loves him and sees in him what other people don't see is that he has moral limits. And this might be something that bothers him. And she doesn't want to she probably doesn't even want to see the look on his face. As simple as that. She just doesn't even want to see the expression. She's probably just wants to keep going full steam ahead and not have to stop and think about that part.
Well, I think it's, the interesting thing about them talking to me is he's been lacking in confidence, and she's been the one that's been sure. And in this moment, she shows doubt, and he buttresses her doubt and says, that thing you feel like, that's because you got away with it. Like, that's why you're questioning yourself. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is, he uses the quote, like, the wicked flee when no man pursueth, to her. What's interesting is, like, the second half of that quote, he doesn't say, and it's actually from Proverbs in the Bible. The second half is, but the bold are, stand righteous or something, or righteous as a lion. Like, he doesn't say the second half. He just says the first half, of that statement. And in reality, this is where he's starting to get his mojo back that we see later in the episode. Like, he's starting to rebuild his confidence to a dangerous level of confidence. And in that moment, if both of them had been honest about where they were, he might have told her, I don't think this is a great idea. And that might have stopped this from going on. But he saw her have doubt, and he stepped up and, put on a brave face and said, like, don't worry, we're getting away with it, because she was enjoying it. I don't know if it was him or her that said, are we on a roll? Like, are we? And like, clearly they're not. Like, they're not on a roll. They're very lucky, and things are headed in a bad direction.
Yeah. And I just kind of wanted to just note also how much smiling that scene gives us with Kim, because she's just not somebody that smiles a ton. She doesn't have a big toothy grin, and, she's just not a super smiley character. And so every single time we get to really see that, like, tooth to tooth smile, it's always these little moments with Jimmy. And I think it might be one of our last ones.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember I saw something online about commenting about her smiling, or maybe it was like a meme, like a foreshot of her smiling in that scene. That hadn't really occurred to me. It's like, I kept going, I've seen her smile. Like, oh, I guess not. Now you think about it, I just don't want to go. My whole thing is like, I don't really want to go down the road about commenting about how a woman doesn't smile enough on the show or something like that. Because it's like, oh, yeah,
it can go way worse.
I guess this podcast is going to end going to get canceled a lot quicker than I thought.
Or she'd be a whole lot prettier if she smiled once in a while.
It's interesting and possibly troubling, just based on how we're talking about it, and it's true, and it's absolutely true, how she's been the moral center and compass for so long, and now, at least at this brief moment in time, that's flipped a little bit. The fact that we're even thinking about, like, Jimmy would be the one to have the problem, like, yeah. But for most of the length of his show, we would never say that. That would always be, she would be the one who'd be aghast. Even if you go back not that long ago, she would still be the one who'd be, aghast about something. And now we're talking about it as though, oh no, Jimmy might have the problem. Although I wonder if that's Jimmy coming out of what's happened with the cartel and with Lala, whatever. But as Brian, as you were saying about him, his mojo coming back, his confidence building up, if that also means that little moral center of his starts to go all askew again. Because, I don't want to cut him any slack, because he feels bad about things at some point, at least during this era, but he still has done the horrible things to begin with. Whether it's what he does to those senior citizens at that home, if we recall, which is pretty fucking awful, and and so on. And so you can even what he eventually does to Chuck, quite frankly, and one could say Chuck deserved it, but then one would say, but did he deserve that? I don't think we think that.
He definitely didn't have any trouble being shitty with Howard and stuff after Chuck died too, when Howard was just like being nice and just like, hey, let's throw a bowling ball at him. I mean,
yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, and we're getting ready to move into what I think triggers Jimmy back to himself, and that is, he wants Kim to be happy in that moment when they're in the bedroom and she's enjoying it, and even his self-doubt, he overcomes it to support her. But then when he goes the next step and people are turning their view on him and treating him like he's a piece of shit, then, like, right or wrong, like his ego, and he's not having it. And we start to see, like, the Saul part of him start to take over to protect the Jimmy part of him. And we start to see that at the courthouse, and it just grows through the whole episode to the end.
Right. You know what? We can actually, if you want, we can since we brought it up, we can jump to that right now. Quite frankly, I have no problem with that, because it was interesting that he was maybe seen, or felt he was seen as one form of a scumbag lawyer, but still. He was someone that was kind of seen kind of almost comically, and they still kind of liked him, whether it be the courthouse clerk or the opposing attorney, whatever. And, even they might get frustrated with him, but whatever. But now that suddenly the word is out, he's all of a sudden got this instant reputation as being the cartel lawyer, the Salamanca lawyer, the one who got whatever. And while that's going to be, apparently that's going to be great for business, with all the reprobates in Albuquerque and so on. Not so great with everyone you have to interact with at the courthouse. the the Beanie Baby thing, which is the Beanie Baby that we saw in the cold open that kicked off the season. So there's one of those things that's one of those little things we'll see later on, not from before. But when he's doing the voice, I briefly thought we would have that character as a guest on this podcast, and I decided I wasn't up for it.
But that whole sequence in the courthouse is beautiful, and there are a lot of callbacks to that in this episode. That this is back to the genesis of Jimmy and Saul. That we saw the contract clerk who dealt with the public defenders getting assignments. We saw her at the beginning of the series. We saw the DA at the beginning of the series, and there's even a callback later in the episode where a certain character is reminded of his job at that courthouse by another certain character. We haven't got there yet, but we will. There are all these callbacks to the start of all these people in this courthouse and how now it's completely different because of what he did with Lalo. And that, it's one thing to do your job and, be sort of the lovable trickster. But I think everybody saw what he did is he did something to advance pure evil. And they turned on him because of that.
Right.
Yeah, only the vending machine.
Yeah.
But only the vending machine still likes Jimmy.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be the guy known for, getting, no pun intended, getting the guy off who's arrested for masturbating in public or that kind of stuff to, the guy who's a mass murderer, and you helped him get out, escape the clutches and so on. Yeah, they might see that a little bit differently. Oh, it was also, I'll just continue down the track with him up until a point. I don't want to go too far. The nail salon. I was for a minute, I was wait, I cannot remember, and somehow maybe one of y'all can remind me, when the last time we were at the nail salon was. Because I don't remember. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
And it made me go wait, has he? Because I remember the whole, we go back again, like Brian, like you were saying, we have all these callbacks to the very beginning of the series, but between the clerk and the opposing and so on, just like we had, him having the office in the back of the nail salon, and I kept thinking, wait, he still has that office in the back of the nail salon? Because he had all those other offices in between. Has he been renting it the whole time? Has he been using it for storage? They didn't show it to us. We didn't go back there if he's still by the boiler and everything. I was kind of fascinated by that. And by the way, I'm sure I don't know if anyone bothered, but once again, the reminder, whenever you watch either Breaking Bad or especially more so Better Call Saul and you see a phone number on the screen, call the phone number. They always have something planned for it. There is an outgoing message if you call that. I think it's the same one, or maybe it's slightly different. It sounds like the same one that they used, again, way back in season 1, where it's the woman from the nail salon. But it's pretty awesome. But I remember.
Is she yelling that the cucumber water is for customers?
Customers only.
But I want to touch on one thing at the courthouse before we move on.
Sure.
And that is what Bill says at the top of the stairs, looking down at Jimmy, that shot so purposely that he's looking down on Jimmy and says, you know what, there's proving and then there's knowing. And that's when he tells Jimmy, basically, no matter what Jimmy says, they're not going to believe him, that they all believe in their heart of hearts he's went bad. And that's when Jimmy says, well, you better prove it, pal. And you see the Saul persona activate, he's trying to be friendly and all that, but he activates into, that's the Saul we see bust in a room with Hank and say, you better have had the goods to have pulled Mr. Pinkman over and, all that stuff that he would do. That's his Saul persona, is to say, you know what, you say all this stuff, you better be able to prove it. And that's an interesting moment, especially with the DA looking down on him. And I think that's And then we see Saul just grow as if he's taken a shot of steroids from, the Barry Bonds doctor throughout the rest of the episode.
Brian,
or should I say Alex
like...
Rodriguez's doctor? Alex Rodriguez's doctor.
Wow, dude, with your baseball team, you should just keep your mouth shut.
Hey, if we took steroids, we probably could come in last.
You might win 4 games this season.
We might win 4 games this year. I'm sorry, Dan, you're supposed to ask me a question.
I was just going to ask you if, like, the way that they're treating Jimmy in this situation, the like prosecutors and stuff like that, did that ring any bells for you? Like, has something that's like happened to you in the past? If you've totally owned like a case or something, and then everybody there was just kind of like a little bit not super thrilled about it.
I will say that not to this extent that I was accused of doing anything wrong. But I did one time represent a very unpopular defendant who had committed terrible acts, and I'll just leave it at that. And when I went to the courthouse and after I left court, I did get a cold shoulder from people just for standing up with this person who did horrible things. Because you're all part of a team. There until you do something no one else likes, and then you're not seen as part of the team, even though you have a job to do. And but I've never if I lied to the court, do I think the clerks and the judges would treat me differently? Even if they couldn't prove it, yes. And I've seen lawyers lie to a judge, and the judge couldn't prove they lied, but everybody knew they were lying. And did that lawyer get treated differently in the future? Absolutely, they did. Because as an officer of the court, you're supposed to not lie to the court.
Yeah.
Hey man, all I'm saying is that they said they like candy, so I don't know why they had such a problem, Brian. Anyway.
Hey, I like candy too.
It's cool. And if anybody is wondering, later in the episode, yeah, I wouldn't have hired Mike Sky to work at my chicken place either. While we're talking about work, so.
You're supposed to save that so I could ask that, Dan. It'd be a callback. So. Oops.
Oh man. Anyway, I'm gonna jump out of the Jimmy stuff, and I wanna circle back to Kim, because Kim being aware of those guys that are following her, and I'm gonna say once. We had that shot where she's approaching the car, and we see the 2 men in the vehicle. That was when I went, oh, they're Mike's guys. I mean, they was clearly were Mike. I didn't think they were cops, and they were like, although they could have been former cops, maybe. I was like, oh, they're absolutely Mike's guys. So, which leads us to what I think most people watching this episode were probably got the most excited about. We get a scene between Mike and Kim, which has not happened before. It's funny that their names are very similar. Mike, Kim. Anyway, just realized that. Shut up, Scott. Anyway, it's
yes, as in they both have letters in them. They're very similar.
Hey, you can, dude. Mike, Kim, together. That's a fucking palindrome. So shut the fuck up, Missouri. Anyway.
Well, to be fair, E-Kim would be.
No. E is the center letter. M-I-K-E.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
It's a palindrome.
You go in all calligraphy.
I apologize for being intelligent, Jamie. I'll try not to be. Anyway, so
and now Scott Saul is coming out on the podcast.
Sorry, go back to your
punch up, dude. Punch up.
Hey, stop giving Scott a bad time. I mean, Scott a bad time.
Look, Nad.
Hey, my children being alive, they appreciate that from me. So.
I know. Well, I didn't say go, Nad. Anyway.
Go, Nad, go.
But if you keep talking, he might.
Too late. No. Do not stop him from talking. We're trying to get a 2 rating. Look, I the I almost said Mikey Kim. Thank you. Oh, wait! Spanish. It would be Mike E. Kim.
There you go.
Actually, it would be Miguel E. Kim. Anyway, the Mike and Kim scene. First of all, it's. I love watching these two finally, have a scene together and the way they interact. And there's something about just the difference in characters and how they play off each other. I like watching. Because there's one thing about characters in the Vince verse. Yes, I'm going to keep trying to make that work. Where one of my favorite things about characters and the performers who undertake them is that we can always tell that the gears are working and how they're considering and thinking about what they're doing and what they're saying. I mean, that was one of the things that made Cranston's performance so memorable as Walter White so many times when he wasn't doing something on immediate impulse. And we see it with both of these characters in a very interesting way. And these are two players who tend to be more understated with their performances. So the way that you can see that he's considering what he will and won't divulge to her, and the way that she's calculating what he's saying and realizing, first who he actually is and what this actually means and so on and so forth. It's a really great back and forth between them. I very much enjoyed it, especially when we get to the revelation. Well, not really a revelation. What he says about her compared to Jimmy, because I believe it's something we said something along those lines. Whatever number, probably when we were talking back about Bad Choice Road, perhaps about that we already know that he's kind of impressed with her from what she did then. So the fact that he thinks that she's made of stronger stuff than Jimmy. And he's already been at least had a level of his admiration, which was at one point zero for Jimmy, at least rose seeing what he did in the desert, and even the fact that he drank his own urine and everything else. But when he sees what Kim did in that, with Lalo, that thing, he realized, oh, she's a force. And that's why he went to her. I just really love this scene. I think it might be my favorite scene of this season so far. And yes, that means I liked it better than anything in the Bye Bye to Nacho episode. And then we went to. All right, so.
No, it's a totally great scene, and I love that they introduce him by voice. That it's not, you don't see him, you hear his voice before you see him. And she's standing up and he's just sitting there, which, Mike in a diner, go figure, right? Like, it's like he has every diner in Albuquerque sussed out, but he's sitting in the diner. And what's interesting to me is she goes up to the two dudes in the car and she's a little bit like nervous, but when she gets up to the car, she's a total badass and isn't cowed by them at all. But when he starts talking to her, like, she immediately senses the gravity of him compared to his guys. And it's like unsettling to her. And by the time he's done, she is completely off balance. I don't know. I would guess she was rattled, but at the very least, she completely had no read on what was happening, or at least information was coming at her faster than she could comprehend. And it kind of came out of nowhere to her. And the idea that Lalo might be alive, was a terrifying thing. And that was great.
She learned a lot of important things. Yeah, there was so much there she got all at once. Lalo might still be alive. You're the guy from the desert. And we've seen what Jimmy has told her about that, but that there's this unspoken part of that whole story that she knows it's really bad. She knows that whatever happened out there was awful, but she doesn't even quite know what it is. But here's a face to it. Here's another piece to that puzzle, like looking at her. And then she recognizes him as the parking lot attendant. So, like, how many 360s did she have to do in that 5-minute conversation?
Right, and the major thing to me is that no matter what she thought about him, that these people know enough to know who she is, know he's connected to her, and are watching her in the event he comes to her, and she knows they're not the police. She knows like that's really, really bad news, and that in that moment. And when Mike says, you know, you're made of sterner stuff than him, which is why I'm telling you, I thought that was a really bold choice. And I think it does make me question what we've seen of Mike. Is he underestimating Jimmy, and is he wrong? I mean, in this moment, I think we probably agree with Mike, but is Mike going to be wrong again?
That's interesting. I hadn't even thought of that. I mean, just based on what we see of Jimmy, and then especially when he's Saul, I mean, I think Mike is dead on right about this. But he can be both completely right about one thing and completely wrong about something else in the same episode, of course. The things I thought were significant, in addition to what you guys have said, of course. Number one, the realization that he's the guy in her initial realization he's the guy in the desert, and the whole thing about being around, like, which also means you're the guy I know that Jimmy's already told me you were a sniper and wiped out almost, you know, an entire gang of people. I'm talking to a stone cold killer right now. That's going to change your perspective. Kind of like when she first spoke to Lalo when she got to see him. She's, you know, you can say she was nervous about that. She's instantly going to be nervous because whoa, and she doesn't know where this conversation is going to go. The other thing which I thought was fascinating during the early part of their conversation is the fact when she realizes, oh, he might not, whether he knows the exact details or not is almost moot, but he already knows that they're up to something. He's making it clear that I don't care about whatever little scheme thing you guys are running, whatever. But he knows that there is something going on, which means no matter how great a scheme plan you've come up with, hey, you know what? Just someone watching you knows this shit going on, whatever. And finally, the thing you meant, I love the fact she remembered he was the parking attendant. I love that she got it clicked because that made so much sense. And then it takes us to something that's very interesting about this world. It's the what's that phrase I'm thinking of? The cliche about maybe it's not really judging a book by its cover. It's all these characters throughout that, you know, have this public face of one thing, and yet there's something much darker and or mysterious or dangerous, you know, underneath. Either, you know, parking attendant turns out to be a sniper who can wipe out an entire gang of people. The guy selling me fried chicken turns out to be a drug lord, you know, and so on and so forth. You know, every other thing that Jimmy ever does. I mean, everyone is like, there's a subterfuge to their public face, and there's something much darker or weirder, or not weirder, but just, you know, creepier underneath. I love that they continue to do that. Or if you go, and obviously that started with Breaking Bad, because, you know, high school teacher is actually a meth cooking drug king. It goes on. This car wash, you know, it goes on and on. Anyway.
Well, yeah, it's the kind of realization that Kim's going to have to do where she's already rattled, but then it's like an extra dose of unreality. So, like, you know, it's just, you know, anybody is just, you know, one more thing to keep her off balance, as well as to, like, you know, maybe peel away another, you know, strip of naivety, you know, if she has any left, of just, like, you know, what's going on here, what could be going on, you know, what the world's made of.
Right.
She'll have to do some extra pro bono work to make up for the fact that the parking lot attendant is maybe criminal.
Can I ask about the guys in the car? Is it like a requirement now, like in every show, there'll be a guy that looks like NoHo Hank from Barry that's like an assassin? Is that going to be like a new stereotype? Like, you know?
Yes, it is. Yeah, there's an entire agency just for that face.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. One thing I just kind of want to throw out there too, just like when you compare yourself, like, you know, when the best writers can have multiple like characters for everybody to relate to on some level. You find one character in a show, and that's your person. That's who you connect with. In both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, it's always been really easy to kind of jump, to multiple characters throughout certain situations. But they do this thing too, where it's like it's so hard to imagine how anybody could be going through some of these situations and still like function. They're not like functioning on a low level. They're still doing their jobs. And here's a woman who has got all the things going on that she's got going on and all the little schemes that she's running right now. But then something that came into her life she was not expecting was a terrifying situation. She was stern, she handled it with sterner stuff. She was tough. She managed it. She controlled it the best that she could to her ability, like the whole situation with Lalo. And then she gets this wave of relief. He's gone. He's dead. We're in the clear. We made it. It's okay. And then all of a sudden the news hits that like, wait, not only was that maybe wrong, like he's still alive, but now you got to imagine how mad he is and who he's going to be coming for. And what does that mean? And the amount of fear that she's going to have to walk around with now and still function. So I think it's going to be interesting to see as the actress changes some of her tones that we've watched over the last year and a half, like her sense of humor kind of leaning a little bit in a different direction, being willing to take more risks. And now this huge weight of that, like the boss, the big bad boss looking over your shoulder any second, like you don't know when they're coming. I am really excited to see how far she can push this role in her last few episodes of this series. And if she doesn't win something for it, then we all know what we're gonna do. It's gonna be bad.
Well, I'm along those lines. I'm curious to see. I mean, we might find out as soon as the next episode or not. If she continues to not divulge things to Jimmy, which again is them almost switching places because he's been the one who's been hiding stuff, who tends to hide stuff from her until it gets revealed. Even right up to Howard offered him a job and all that stuff, whatever. But right now, she didn't, like I said earlier, she didn't tell him about, Cliff Maine's son and all that situation. Because we're assuming he didn't know about it either. For all I know, they both did, but I'm going to say he probably didn't. I don't know. I feel it's more likely she did than he did, but who knows. But now, when we see, and now I can get to the end, when she meets up with him and they end up going to see the space for rent of the space we know will actually become the office of Saul Goodman. And it's almost, you can, again, what I love about performance is like you can see the tumblers falling in place, and I feel like you can actually see her making the decision that she's not going to tell him.
Yep.
Because, and it makes perfect sense for her to keep that from him because of the way he was when he came back from the desert. And this whole situation. And now he's starting to become more like the Jimmy that she knows. She throws this she throws this monkey wrench in there. He might revert. The post-traumatic, everything might start to return again. So it's going to be like what you were saying about the fact she's going to have to carry that kind of weight, and that how that's going to how we'll tabulate how her performances from that point is, and also just as far as character and story, how that impacts the decisions she makes from this point on. Less so with the scheme with Howard, perhaps. But pretty much everything else. But knowing the writers and between Gilligan and Gould and everything else on the show, I suspect at some point they will find a way to have these things kind of eventually collide, and there will be some cross-hatching of these plots, even though they seem like they wouldn't have anything to do with one another at this point in time. So,
the final thing I was going to say about that, Scott, is we do see her sort of pull a Saul in that she's rattled and trying to decide, but she kicks into like problem solver mode and goes through this wonderful list of why it could be a good location.
Yeah.
And like
it's like she's convincing herself.
Right, but she makes really good points. Like it's close to the courthouse, the people driving in. Like you see the brilliant mind of Kim Wexler, which is, in its full element in that moment. And the fear I have, and we talked about it before, and this is the last thing I'll say about it. The fear I have is she doesn't tell Jimmy. Jimmy rats out Lalo because Lalo thinks he's dead, and she never told him that. Then they both become targets. And, his choice, like of being a rat, well, it's not as bad to rat out a dude that's dead as it is a dude that's alive, right? If Jimmy really continues to suffer the indignities at the courthouse and wants to get back in and wants to regain his place so everybody at the courthouse doesn't hate him, because we know on some level he's a little bit of a people pleaser and takes that route, and she doesn't tell him this, and they both end up in terrible danger. That's the fear I have, that her not telling him, based on what we saw in this episode and previous episodes, that's my fear, that it could go that way.
I think one of the biggest tragedies of that situation too would be that I feel like less that he would rat out everybody on that. It's that he would be doing it so that the negative influence, the negative attitude people have towards him wouldn't so strongly affect Kim. Like, I think that if he goes forward and he comes out honest with these things, he is doing it to protect her and her reputation and her ease with her coworkers.
But the issue was, if he did that, he wouldn't be Saul Goodman, lawyer for all the criminals in Albuquerque, because I don't think they'd really be all over hiring him after he ratted out somebody. Since there's
That's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Spooge would be out of there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like he would not be going to get his retainer fee.
Yeah, that's like the big fly in the ointment as far as that's concerned, because unless somehow he did it, but no one ever knew about it, but then, because otherwise, how would he be working as Saul Goodman when we see him years later? Considering certain Salamancas that we know of are still around at that point. I got a feeling it could be something along those lines, but just not that. It's just, but something, it's always the way they come up with stuff on the show is it's going to be something, oh, that's not exactly what we thought of. Oh, okay. Nice that we were thinking here, and they kind of were like, oh, they were like 3 degrees over here. We didn't think of that. And I think so like I said, I think there'll be a connection, but I don't think it'll be exactly that, unless it happens to be her that ends up being the, after because that might be more significant, because she's the one who implied, with her little manipulation, do you want to be a cartel lawyer or do you want to be a rat? And you say it like that, that means you're basically telling him to be the cartel lawyer. If she's the one who decides to do that, which is even more insane considering she's been told that Lalo's actually alive. So I'm very curious to see where they go with this. And also looking forward to seeing.
It could support the.
Go on.
It could support the theory of why we don't see or ever hear about Kim in the future, because maybe she's is going to have to cut some deals and disappear.
Yeah, she could be in witness protection in Omaha, and that's why it's like Saul's half-assed dream is to go work at a Cinnabon in Nebraska, and ends up doing it.
There you go.
I don't think it was his dream. I don't think he says it like a dream. I think,
Yeah, maybe not a dream, but it is something that he just kind of offhandedly mentioned. So usually,
Yeah.
like most.
It was a subliminal desire.
Yeah.
that's the biggest fucking stretch I've ever heard on one of these podcasts.
But have you ever had a Cinnabon? Man.
See, I think they're saving up the budget for the show, and so that way, by the end, they'll be able to afford to do a completely CGI version of Robert Forster, and he's going to make Kim disappear, and so that way we can be happy that she. And then we're going to see. Fast forward, it turns out she's in Alaska, and Jesse meets Kim. Anyway, so
They're besties. They're besties now.
oh, that'll be great. Oh, then that'll be the new show.
Here you go, spinoff. Yes.
Well, if she ends up seeing Jesse, we have seen a lot of the El Camino Donner.
I know.
That's what I mean. They keep showing it too.
It's my feeling that if Jesse shows up, it's Jesse's going to show up and Kim to see Kim as a lawyer, and that's going to be the thing. We will not have him meeting Saul. That doesn't make any sense because they clearly meet for the first time, but he can meet her, and
Yep.
I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with it. Also, they're probably going to have to CGI him up a little bit, too, just so he doesn't look like he's, like 15 years older and, 30 pounds heavier.
What is he, like 48, 49 years old, playing like a 17-year-old? I don't know.
I don't think he's 48 or 40.
It's like Grease all over again, man.
He's
a bunch of middle-agers singing high school songs.
He's a little bit younger than that.
Although he was on a video with Bryan Cranston I saw recently, and he looked pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He was on one of the nightly talk shows last week.
He is 42. He's 42. Okay. There you go. He's your age, Jamie. I'm just kidding. I don't know how old you are. Joking.
Hey, I'm telling you, I couldn't go back and play 17 without like a lot of professionals helping out. So
they'll just get those Marvel guys who made like Michael Douglas look young and old, and.
But I mean, like, if he's like doing, he's being kind of like shady, and he has to hire her for one of his drug offenses, like his early year drug offenses. He could get away with looking a little cruddy. It's all right. That works.
We'll see. We have no idea how they're gonna work either of them in, and it's easier to imagine a way to work him in, especially if it's during this actual time period, than Walter. That's the one that to me is like, okay, that's the challenge. Jesse's a lot of ways you can do that. We can conceive of. Walter, it's a bit, because if we're not doing dream episodes or anything like that, unless we're going to have Gene having a dream, that's in color, and then we go back to black and white. He's kind of like a Wizard of Oz kind of thing. Wait a minute. Anyway. And David Lynch will direct that segment. Anyway. So, it remains to be seen. Oh my gosh, I think we just finished the episode, didn't we? All right, then. Look at that. Oh, I said we would get done with this one quick. All right, so unless anyone has anything else they want to say about this episode, I'll do a going once, going twice. Okay, I'll assume.
Don't get rid of the toilet.
Oh, the toilet. So I love the fact
Don't get rid of it.
I love the fact that we kicked off the season focusing. One of our focuses was look at that golden toilet, and then this space. Oh, look, right in the middle of everything, a toilet. So it's basically a tribute to Norman Lear and all the family. Like, yeah, it's a toilet. Anyway, so y'all out there, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you'll enjoy hanging out on our Facebook page as well. It's a Serious TV Drama Podcast page. Like the page, and you can enjoy talking about shows like Better Call Saul and so many others. You can find this podcast pretty much wherever podcasts can be found, either at Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and so on. Better still, you can just go to stvdpodcast.podbean.com, and you can find this along with, well, this would be the 341, so 340 other podcasts there. And as I've been joking around, if you were to dip into that archive, and I check the stats, it's always interesting. People out of nowhere start listening to one from like 3 or 4 years ago. I'm like, cool, whatever. Even though the audio is shitty, damn. Anyway, but I say, even if you see the word forbidden, and I don't know what that means, click on the link and you'll still get to a place where you can listen to it. Trust me, I don't know. I don't know. It's probably music licensing issues. That's probably what it is. That's why we don't do that shit anymore. Finally, not so much finally, you can follow us on Instagram at Serious TV Drama, and you can follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is at STVD Podcast. STVD as in Serious TV Drama. We will be back next week. The next episode, continuing the chain of the this and that titles, I believe the next title is Black and Blue. I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping someone gets beaten the shit out of. Anyway.
That's when Jesse returns.
That's when that's when our little Kim and Jimmy law firm takes on that Clef Maine law firm. Beats. I don't think of that other podcast. Anyway, so fuck them. All right, I want to thank you guys. Wow, imagine I was drinking during the podcast back in the old days. Those are good podcasts. At least they seemed like they were good because I was drunk by the time they were over. So let's make our round of goodbyes here. Thank you to Brian, Jamie, and of course Dan for showing up and talking about the latest episode. So good night to you guys and good night to everybody else out there.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, so I'd like to talk about that Howard scene a little bit more. I'm just kidding. Good night, guys. Sorry.
do 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 do.